Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 37 of Dirtmasters Unplugged, the tuning series where we take vehicles which are typically not used for rallying, or maybe in some cases don't have a rallying counterpart featured on the game, and then we build it to that kind of spec so that it can compete as a rally car, be it in the style of something like Rallycross, WRC, Pikes Peak, etc. Now this particular vehicle is already a race car. It's a touring car, of course, the Mitsubishi Evo 9 touring car, a very good touring car in its own right, but we are building it into a rally car, and it's one of the relatively few race cars that can be used off-road, which is pretty cool. Now, I've decided to build this to WRC specs. Initially I wondered about a Pikes Peak build, but it's not really powerful enough for that, not to be extreme enough that is, so I opted for, as I said, WRC style. So as far as the visuals, all I've done is painted it red. I've painted it Colton red, which is a Mitsubishi red from the older Evo, seemed appropriate for the car, and so we'll go first of all, of course, to the mechanical setup, and then take it out to a dirt track. Now, as far as PP, as you can see, we've got it rounded off to 480, which perhaps isn't as high as you might expect, but that's where it is. Now, I've gone for dirt tyres, of course, or snow, if that's where you intend to take it. As far as suspension, I've got the ride height set on 130, front and rear. The springs on 10, front and rear. Dampers on 3 and anti-roll on 3, with neutral camber and toe. We'll come back to the gearbox in just a second. For the diff, and with an Evo, you do really need to adjust it to your personal preference, but I've opted for the lowest initial torque, highest acceleration, and lowest braking. As far as the centre diff, I've sent 80% of the torque to the rear, and of course upgraded the prop shaft. As far as power, and this is where you've got kind of an option as to what you want to do, I reduced it down to 315 horsepower so that it's on par with the WRC cars that are already on the game. So to do that, I've fitted the Stage 3 engine tune plus an oil change, and then reduced the power down to 63.4%. Now if you don't fit the engine tune, you can tune it to the same PP, but it'll have 320 horsepower. So it depends really on where you want it. As far as the downforce, we've got that as high as possible, and for the weight, again, to bring it up to the WRC weight of 1230 kilos, I've added a 150 kilo ballast, and just to even out the weight distribution, I've put that all the way to the back of the car. And finally for the gearbox, obviously it's not a top speed tune, nowhere near, so we've got an auto setting of 130, then I've just rounded off the gears to 3475, 2475, 1875, 1500, 1250 and 1075 with a final drive of 4.5. So that's it for the build. Now let's of course take it out finally to a dirt track. Now as far as base vehicles go for rallying, this is a pretty naturally good one. After all, it's already got the look that you would want from a rally car. It looks convincing, it's got that racing style look to it, being already a touring car. It's also more rigid, stiffer, because it is a racing machine than the road version would be, and overall it does make a very good rally car. Now I'd recommend copious use of the handbrake, or the e-brake as I believe Americans like to call it, to initiate the cornering of the car, because the Evo naturally has a huge amount of grip, and sometimes you kind of need to counteract that. Now of course you could change the settings, but personally I like to have that high amount of grip for getting out of corners, and then just pull the handbrake to initiate, in effect, a drift to get you into that slide. But overall it's a really nice car to drive, it handles itself very well, and it can certainly compete with the WRC cars that are on the game. So if you do decide to use this build, obviously I hope you find it fun and potentially competitive for rallying as well. And if you'd like to keep up with other builds like this as soon as they're released, be sure to slap subscribe down below for that. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.